Welcome back to the deep dive. I want to start today by asking you to just check your gut for a second.
Okay.
Because you know that feeling when you read the morning headlines, right? GDP is up, the stock market is hitting all-time highs.
The politicians are doing their victory laps on cable news.
Exactly. But then you look at your own industry. Or you see your friends' frantic LinkedIn posts about getting laid off. Or there's just this deafening silence in your recruiting inbox and something just feels off.
It's the cognitive dissonance of the mid-2020s. I mean, the internet has coined a term for it, the vibe session.
The vibe session.
Right, because the official data says one thing, but the vibes, the actual lived experience on the ground, they're telling a completely different story.
Yeah, and it feels like gaslighting, honestly, on a massive macroeconomic scale. And today, we are going to validate that feeling for you.
We really are.
Because we are staring into the abyss of a number so large and so unsettling that it basically confirms what many of us have suspected. The map we are using to navigate the economy is totally broken.
Fundamentally broken.
So let's look at our source material. We're looking at the revised job numbers from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the BLS, for 2024 and 2025. And the headline isn't just bad. It's like a glitch in the matrix level event.
It is. I mean, we're talking about a revision that essentially erased 1 million jobs.
1 million.
1 million jobs that the government claimed existed, right? Jobs that the markets traded on, that monetary policy was written around, they simply never happened.
They didn't exist.
No. They were a statistical mirage.
Let's just sit with that for a moment. 1 million. That is not a rounding error. That isn't whoops, we carried the one in the Excel sheet.
Not at all.
That is the population of a major city, like Austin or San Jose, just vanishing from the payrolls overnight.
To give you a sense of the scale here, usually these BLS revisions are in the tens of thousands. A little statistical noise is normal. You expect that?
Sure, they're estimate.
Right, but this
Yeah.
This is a signal failure. It suggests that the models the government uses to guess how many people are working are just completely detached from reality.
No.
And when you dig into the revised data for 2025 specifically, the picture gets even darker.
How dark are we talking? Break down the 2025 numbers for us.
So the revised total non-farm employment growth for the entire year of 2025 was just 181,000 jobs.
Wait, I want to make sure the listener really catches that. 181,000 jobs for the whole year.
The whole year.
Not a month.
No, that is the net gain for the entire United States economy over 12 months.
Okay, let's do some napkin math here.
Yeah.
Because there are roughly 330 million people in America. We have natural population growth, immigration, young people graduating college and entering the workforce every May.
Right.
Usually, don't we need to create a certain baseline number of jobs just to stay neutral, just to absorb all those new bodies entering the system?
You're spot on. Economists generally estimate that, depending on labor force participation rates, the U.S. economy needs to create somewhere between 80,000 to 100,000 jobs every single month just to tread water.
Every month.
Every month. If you weren't hitting that baseline, unemployment is technically rising because the workforce is growing faster than the job market itself.
So if we need 100,000 a month to break even, and we only created 181,000 in 12 months.
That averages out to about 15,000 jobs a month.
Wow.
Yeah. We are missing the break-even target by a factor of 6.
15,000. That is microscopic. I mean, that is effectively zero growth in an economy of this size.
It's completely stagnant. And to give you a benchmark for how bad that is, think back to 2010.
Okay, the recovery from the housing crash.
Right. We were clawing our way out of the Great Recession. The housing market was absolute dust. Banks were collapsing. People were losing their homes left and right. It was an economic nightmare.
Yeah, I remember.
And yet, in that nightmare recovery scenario, we were adding 150,000 jobs a month.
Wait, so in 2010, we were doing 150,000 a month.
Yes. 10 times what we are seeing right now.
So in the middle of a historic generational crisis, we were generating 10 times the employment velocity we have today. That really puts it into perspective.
It does. The only times in the 21st century we've seen numbers, this weak numbers that rival 2024 and 2025, were during full-blown panic in the streets catastrophes.
Like the dot-com crash.
The dot-com bust in the early 2000s, exactly. And the absolute rock bottom of 2008 and 2009. Those were moments of highly visible panic. You had bread lines, foreclosures, people walking out of Lehman Brothers with cardboard boxes.
Right, the pain was obvious.
Exactly. But here is the glitch in the current matrix. If you walk outside right now, the local Starbucks is completely full. The roads are packed with commuters. The stock market is booming.
The official narrative is a soft landing.
That's the lie, isn't it? That's what our source Imperial explicitly calls it.
The lie, with a capital L.
The lie. The source argues that this narrative of stability is essentially covering up a massive fundamental transformation in how the economy operates.
Because it's not a normal cycle.
No, we aren't in a business cycle. This isn't just the Federal Reserve raising interest rates and causing a temporary lull in hiring. We are witnessing a structural substitution of labor.
Substitution of labor. You know, that sounds so clinical, like something you'd read in a dry macroeconomics textbook. But when you apply it to real life, it's actually terrifying.
It is.
It means we aren't just waiting for the economy to pick up again. We're waiting for a train that's been completely scrapped.
Exactly. And that is the core mission of our deep dives today. We need to go beyond these scary headline numbers. We have to understand why this is happening.
Why the white-collar jobs are evaporating.
Right. While the broader GDP somehow continues to grow, we need to dissect the actual mechanism of this silent crash.
And most importantly, because I know this subject can feel incredibly paralyzing.
Extremely paralyzing.
We are going to map out the survival guide provided by the source material. Because if the old rules of go to college, get a safe white-collar job, retire at 65, those rules are dead, you need new rules.
You absolutely do.
So let's start with the anatomy of this crash. Because you mentioned the vibe session earlier, but the data suggests it's not a recession for everyone, right? It's distinctly K-shaped.
Right. If you visualize the letter K, the vertical line on the left is the past. That's when everything was generally moving together.
A rising tide lifting all boats.
Exactly. Then the economy splits. The upper arm of the K goes up. Those people are doing great, better than ever, frankly. And the lower arm goes down. Those people are being crushed. What's unique and, frankly, frightening about this specific split is who happens to be on which arm.
Because usually in a traditional recession, the lower arm is the working class, right? Manufacturing, service industry, retail.
Yeah.
When money gets tight, people stop buying extra things, so the factory shuts down. They usually get hit first.
Historically, yes, that is exactly how it works. But look at the data now. Who is safe? Who is sitting comfortably on the upper arm of the K healthcare, for one?
Because of the demographics.
Right, we have a rapidly aging population.
Mm-hmm.
The boomers are retiring, and they need massive amounts of medical care. Nurses, doctors, elder care assistants, physical therapists. There is practically zero unemployment in those sectors.
Because you can't automate them.
You cannot digitize a bed bath. You cannot automate the physical empathy required to sit with a family and tell them their loved one is sick.
So the human touch is essentially a moat, a protective barrier. What about the trades?
Manual construction is absolutely booming. If you need a house framed right now, or a burst pipe fixed, or new HVAC system installed, good luck finding someone cheaper available tomorrow.
Yeah, try getting a plumber on a Tuesday. It's impossible.
Those jobs are adding massive numbers. We have a severe housing shortage in this country. We have huge infrastructure bills passing through Congress. The physical world still needs to be built, maintained, and repaired by human hands.
Okay, so the hands are safe, the physical economy is intact and thriving.
Correct. Now look at the kill zone. Where did those 1 million jobs vanish from in the BLS revision?
The lower arm of the K.
They vanished almost entirely from the cognitive layer, the information economy.
White-collar work.
Exactly. SaaS companies, software as a service, middle management, creative directors, marketing agencies, HR departments, junior legal associates.
The laptop class.
The laptop class. The exact people who live their lives in email, Slack, and Zoom. And this is the brutal irony. These are the exact roles that for the last 40 years, we told every single child in America to aim for.
Right. Don't work with your back, work with your brain.
Go to college, get the expensive degree, sit in the air conditioning, and you are set for life. That was the social contract.
It really does feel like a profound betrayal of the college promise. I mean, think about the student debt crisis. We have an entire generation of people who essentially mortgage their futures for these specific degrees: communications, computer science, business administration.
Because they were supposed to be the unequivocally safe path.
And now the data says the path is actually a cliff.
And that disparity, that's the smoking gun, proving this isn't a normal cyclical downturn. In a normal recession, everything contracts together. People stop building houses and they stop hiring accountants.
Everything shrinks.
But here, manual labor is holding steady or even growing. The knowledge economy is being surgically gutted. That specific disparity screams substitution.
Meaning companies aren't just pausing their hiring because money is expensive. They are actively finding ways to do the exact same work without the people.
Precisely. It's not that interest rates are too high to hire a junior developer. It's that they realize they don't actually need the junior developer at all, as long as the senior developer has the right AI tools. The substitution is happening at the granular level of the task, not just the overarching job title.
Which brings us to a historical concept the source spends a lot of time on. And I think we really need to define it clearly because it gets thrown around constantly in tech circles. The Luddite Fallacy.
Ah, yes. The absolute favorite defense of every tech billionaire and Silicon Valley optimist on Twitter.
Right. Whenever someone complains about automation taking jobs or says, hey, this new AI agent is going to make me homeless, the standard reflexive response is, you're being a Luddite. Don't worry. Technology always creates more jobs than it destroys in the end.
The old car and horse argument.
Exactly. The car destroyed the horse and buggy industry, sure, but it created the mechanic, the road paver, the motel operator, the drive-through restaurant.
And here is the vital nuance that we had to get right today. In the strict macroeconomic sense, spanning centuries, they are right.
They are, so we shouldn't be worried.
Well, hold on a second. If you zoom all the way out to a 300-year timeline, yes, technology absolutely makes society wealthier, goods get exponentially cheaper, and eventually humanity invents new needs that create entirely new categories of jobs.
Right. I mean, we couldn't imagine a social media manager in 1800.
Or a prompt engineer, or an MRI radiologist. Those jobs were entirely created by technology. But, and this is the massive, glaring but that our source highlights, that long-run equilibrium can take 40 to 80 years to actually stabilize.
40 to 80 years. That's an entire human life.
Exactly. As the economist John Maynard Keynes famously pointed out, in the long run, we are all dead. Wow. The source calls this the stark difference between the macro truth and the micro brutality.
I like that phrasing.
The macro truth is humanity gets richer. The micro brutality is you lose your house today.
And we have the historical receipts for this. We really need to talk about Engel's pause.
I love this historical deep dive section of the source.
Yeah.
Take us back to 1810. Set the scene.
Okay, so we are in the early raw days of the Industrial Revolution in England. The textile industry is essentially the Silicon Valley of its day. It's where all the explosive innovation and capital is flowing. In 1810, if you were a master handloom weaver, you're the absolute aristocracy of labor.
So, comparable to a senior machine learning engineer at Google today.
Even better, arguably. They work from home, they completely set their own hours, they own their own equipment, the loom itself, and they often earned more than the actual factory owners.
Yes. They were solidly middle class, highly respected, and very comfortable. They had all the leverage in the market because they possessed a highly specialized, necessary skill.
And then the technology shifted.
Then came the power loom and the steam engine. True automation entered the chat. By 1840, which is just 30 years later, a single career span, that exact same trade, weaving, paid less than child labor in a coal mine.
From earning more than the boss to earning less than a child in one lifetime.
Yes, and here is the central paradox, which is exactly why economists call it Engels' pause, named after Friedrich Engels, who observed it in real time. During that exact same period, 1810 to 1840, the British GDP doubled.
The country got richer.
Insanely rich. The macro truth was working. The factory owners bought massive country estates. But the real wages for the working class dropped and stayed flat for decades.
So the weavers didn't just seamlessly adapt. The standard modern advice of just reskill didn't work for them.
No. They didn't learn to code, so to speak. They died in abject poverty. Their specialized skills were rendered totally obsolete overnight, and the new jobs that were created, the factory jobs running the power, looms, paid absolute pennies because they required zero specialized skill.
Because the machine was doing the skilled part.
Exactly. A literal child could run the new machine. It wasn't until the massive labor reforms, the violent rise of unions, and the incredibly slow adjustment of society, which took nearly 2 full generations, that the long-run benefits finally kicked in.
2 generations.
Their grandchildren benefited from the Industrial Revolution. The weavers themselves were just fuel for the fire. They were sacrificed to the transition.
That is incredibly heavy. It completely dismantles that breezy, don't worry, it'll work out narrative you see online. It works out for humanity, capital H. It doesn't necessarily work out for you.
Precisely. And we've seen this exact movie play out before, multiple times. Look at the second major revolution of the late 1800s, electrification and mass production. This one came for the farmers and the rural artisans.
The massive demographic move from the farm to the city.
Right. Mechanization meant you didn't need 20 strong guys to harvest a field anymore. You needed one guy and a gas-powered tractor. And at the exact same time, you had the rise of the mail-order catalog, specifically Sears Roebuck.
And the source points out that Sears was essentially the Amazon of its day.
It was exactly Amazon. It ruthlessly centralized commerce.
Yeah.
It wiped out the local general store, the local blacksmith, the local craftspeople in a matter of years. If you could order a cheaper, mass-produced, better plow directly from the catalog, why on earth would you buy it from the guy down the street?
You wouldn't. Economics always wins out.
So you had millions of people utterly displaced from the land, moving into crowded, dangerous cities like Chicago and New York, where they had zero safety networks, no family support, and no relevant skills for the new industrial machine.
And who won that round? Who was on the upper arm of that K?
The robber barons. Carnegie, Rockefeller, Ford. The wealth inequality gap exploded to levels we are frankly only just starting to see again today. And again, look at the timeline. It took 40 to 60 years, a global world war, and the massive government intervention of the New Deal to finally build a stable middle class out of that trauma.
A huge generational lag. Again.
Yes. And then, bringing it closer to home, the one we all actually remember, the internet age.
From the 2000s to the present.
Right. This one deeply hollowed out blue-collar manufacturing through globalization, which is just a form of communication technology and physical automation, and it started actively chipping away at rote white-collar work, too.
Things like travel agents, bank tellers, print journalists.
Exactly. Jobs that were basically human routers of information.
And the source draws a really grim correlation here to the rise of what sociologists call the deaths of despair.
It's a vital connection.
Yeah.
We see a direct, undeniable statistical line between the economic displacement in Middle America, the hollowing out of all those factory towns, and the massive spike in suicides, opioid overdoses, and severe alcoholism.
Because their entire economic foundation was pulled out from under them.
Yes. The immense wealth generated by the internet was intensely concentrated in a few ZIP codes. San Francisco, Seattle, New York. The pain, however, was exported everywhere else.
So we have this crystal clear historical pattern. 1800s, the weavers get crushed. 1900s, the farmers get crushed. 2000s, the factory workers get crushed. And now we are sitting at the fourth turning. But I have to ask the skeptics question here, because I know people are thinking it. We survived those. Society adapted eventually. Why is AI fundamentally different? Why is this the quote-unquote end of work and not just another painful but normal shift?
This is the absolute crux of the argument. And in all those previous shifts we just talked about, technology augmented the worker.
Augmentation versus substitution. Let's break that down, because that is the key difference.
The power loom still fundamentally needed a human operator. The massive Ford assembly line still needed a human at every single station to turn the wrench. The internet required a human manager to actually click the buttons and make decisions. There was always what the source calls a human bridge.
A bridge between the tool itself and the final outcome. The machine couldn't just run itself from start to finish.
Exactly. You desperately needed a human brain to translate the machine's raw capability into a finished, sellable product. AI is structurally different because it collapses that bridge entirely. It permanently shifts the dynamic from augmentation to pure substitution.
Because it provides the cognitive intelligence itself. It doesn't need you to think for it.
Yes. Think about software development. If you can ask an AI to write the raw code, then debug its own code, then write the consumer marketing copy for that code, and then automatically deploy it to the server, where exactly is the human junior developer in that loop?
They aren't in the loop.
No, you don't need the bridge anymore. The tool is the outcome.
The source shared a really personal anecdote about this that I found absolutely fascinating. He's building a video game, right?
Yes. And this is a perfect, terrifying microcosm of the macro issue we were discussing. He's an entrepreneur, he's building this indie game, and he mentions a very specific data point. His revenue is up. It was his highest year ever in 2025, but his payroll is significantly down.
Which is the absolute dream for a business owner, but a total nightmare for the broader consumer economy.
Right, because think about the mechanics of how he's doing it. He isn't hiring a freelance concept artist anymore. He's just using Mid-Journey to generate assets in seconds. He isn't hiring a junior coder to fix bugs. He's running his scripts through Claude. He isn't hiring a marketing copywriter. He's just prompting ChatGPT. He is personally doing the work of what used to be a highly specialized, expensive team of 10 people. He calls himself the pilot of a mech suit.
I love that image, the mech suit. But it's also undeniably terrifying. One single person in a digital mech suit completely replacing a squad of human workers.
It implies that companies, right now, are achieving vastly more output with drastically fewer people. The efficiency is sky high. Corporate profits are sky high. But the job market is the silent victim of that extreme efficiency.
Right.
If you own the company or you own the stock, this is a golden age. If you are the employee whose only asset is selling your time for an hourly rate, you are the weaver from 1810. You are the cost center that just got mathematically optimized away.
This really paints a stark picture of why the political response feels so utterly paralyzed right now. Because if GDP is officially going up and corporate profits are hitting records, the dashboard in Washington looks bright green. But underneath the hood, the engine is completely on fire.
And that leads us directly to the political paralysis. Why won't anyone in power just stand up and call this a recession?
Because admitting it is essentially political suicide.
Exactly. The politicians' ultimate dilemma is that they need votes to survive. Admitting to the public that the economy is fundamentally structurally broken and that those comfortable white-collar jobs are simply never coming back, that loses elections instantly. So the only viable strategy is obfuscation.
Hide the decline.
Hide it, spin it, gaslight the public. Just keep saying, the economy's strong, look at your 401k.
The source breaks down the two main political responses we're seeing form right now. And it's really interesting because looking at it objectively, neither side actually seems to have a complete functional answer. Let's look at the right first, the Trumpian approach.
The right strategy, according to the breakdown in the source, is essentially just let the market rip. Cure accelerationism. Focus entirely on the stock market valuations and top-line GDP growth.
Which makes total sense if your core belief is that all wealth eventually trickles down.
Right. Their proposed plan essentially involves two main pillars: deportation and dominance. They argue that aggressively deporting cheap illegal labor will artificially tighten the labor market and force wages up for the working class.
Okay, that covers the physical economy.
Exactly. Simultaneously, they want to double down on total AI supremacy. They want to remove safety regulations, let the tech giants build massive nuclear-powered data centers everywhere because they view AI fundamentally as a national security asset.
It's an arms race against China. It's the new Cold War.
Exactly. The underlying logic is we absolutely must win the global AI race to maintain our superpower status. If we slow down to worry about white-collar jobs, China wins and dictates the future. So we will use the massive financial wealth generated by tech to fund deficit spending and just keep the economic party going as long as possible.
So basically ignore the painful domestic displacement, focus on global national dominance, and keep the stock portfolio pumping. What about the left, the Sanders, AOC, Mamdani camp?
They are heavily focused on regulation and worker protection. You see increasingly loud calls for moratoriums on building those massive data centers. Bernie Sanders actually took a very publicized meeting with AI pioneer Jeffrey Hinton specifically to discuss the existential systemic dangers of the technology.
Right.
They want to completely ban AI in military decision-making. And fundamentally, their core economic plan is to tax the robots.
Tax the winners of the AI boom to support the losers. Universal basic income, massive social safety nets.
Right. It definitely sounds more humane on paper. Slow the machine down. Protect the vulnerable people. But the expert analysis in the source here is pretty grim regarding both sides. Neither political faction actually has a holistic, workable answer to the substitution problem.
Why? What is the fatal flaw in the left's regulatory plan?
It comes down to brutal game theory. If you aggressively slow down AI development in the U.S. through regulation, or you tax it so heavily that it stifles innovation, you immediately hand the global advantage to rival nations who absolutely will not slow down.
Right. China isn't going to put a sudden moratorium on their AI development just because Bernie Sanders thinks it's only fair to workers.
Exactly. So if you regulate too hard domestically, you risk losing both national security and global economic dominance. You essentially become Europe, very safe, highly regulated, but technologically and economically irrelevant on the world stage.
Okay, so slowing down is incredibly dangerous globally, but the right's approach, just letting it rip and ignoring the fallout.
If you just let it rip and completely ignore the glaring fact that millions of highly educated white-collar workers are losing their livelihoods, you get massive social instability. You get riots in the streets. You get a totally fractured society. You simply cannot have 20% real unemployment among the educated laptop class people who actively know how to communicate, organize, and protest, and expect to maintain a stable, peaceful democracy.
So we are basically stuck between losing our position on the world stage or violently tearing ourselves apart at home.
That is the K-shaped civilization the source explicitly warns about. A fractured world where asset owners, the people sitting safely at the top of the K-dough incredibly well, they ride the AI wave to unimaginable wealth. And wage earners, the people who rely entirely on selling their time for money, get absolutely crushed into the dirt. It creates a bifurcated species almost.
I'm not going to lie, this is bleak. It feels like we are watching a slow-motion car crash and nobody has hands on the steering wheel. But the source explicitly promised a way out, a survival guide. And honestly, I think you, the listener, really need this right now. We all need to know what to actually do.
Yes, we absolutely have to pivot from macroeconomic analysis to micro-level action. Because while the macro situation is undeniably doom and gloom, the individual opportunity right now is actually incredibly high if and only if you position yourself correctly.
Okay, so what is the fundamental mental shift required?
The core advice is very simple to say, but extremely hard to actually internalize. You must stop thinking like an employee and start acting like an owner.
Stop being an employee. That's a really tough pill to swallow for people who have been strictly conditioned to be employees their entire lives. I mean, we are literally trained from kindergarten to be good, compliant employees. Sit still at your desk, listen to the teacher, get the good grade, get the safe job, don't rock the boat.
It is incredibly difficult to unlearn. But the underlying economic logic is irrefutable. The employee model, which is trading your finite time for fiat currency, is the specific model that is breaking right now. The owner model, holding scarce assets that appreciate and utilizing extreme leverage, is the model that is winning. If the value of human labor is rapidly being devalued to zero by AI, you do not want your primary income to be selling labor. You want to legally own the thing that is doing the work.
Let's get highly tactical then. Practical step one, asset allocation. What do we do with our money?
The source is very, very specific here. Stop blindly saving cash beyond a basic emergency fund.
Wait, cash is trash. My grandma would be completely horrified by that advice. She keeps everything in a standard savings account because it's quote-unquote safe.
In this specific macroeconomic environment, yes, holding cash is dangerous. We are currently in an era of what economists call fiscal dominance. The U.S. government is running massive multi-trillion-dollar deficits. They are essentially printing new money just to pay the interest on the old debt.
Right.
That means inflation and severe currency debasement are hard-coded features of the system now, not temporary bugs. If you hold all your wealth in cash, you are holding a rapidly melting ice cube. The actual number sitting in the bank might stay exactly the same, but the real purchasing power of that number is vanishing every single day.
So you need to buy assets instead. What kind of assets are we talking about?
Hard assets, things that are mathematically or physically scarce. Equities, meaning stocks, commodities, gold, Bitcoin, real estate. Things that the federal government absolutely cannot just print more of on a whim.
But there's a massive warning in the text here, too, about correlation risk.
Right. Do not just buy 10 different AI tech stocks like NVIDIA, Microsoft, Google, Meta, and smugly call your portfolio diversified.
Because they all move together.
Exactly. If the AI tech bubble bursts or there's a regulatory crackdown, they all go down the drain together. That's heavily correlated risk. You urgently need uncorrelated assets. Maybe physical gold moves differently than commercial real estate, which moves differently than crypto assets. You want a robust basket that can weather completely different kinds of economic storms. The source refers to this as the barbell strategy.
The barbell strategy. Super safe, boring assets on one side of the barbell and high growth, risky assets on the other side.
Exactly. Land and gold on one side, crypto and tech equities on the other.
And he also adds a crucial note about emotional sobriety, which I really like.
Yes, that part is critical. Keep 6 to 12 months of living expenses in pure cash. Not because it's a good investment. We just established it's a terrible melting investment. But because having it buys you deep psychological peace of mind.
You don't want to be a forced seller.
Exactly. You never want to be in a desperate position where you have to liquidate your Bitcoin or sell your stocks at the exact bottom of a market crash just to pay your rent or buy groceries. You need a cash buffer so you can calmly hold your assets through the inevitable chaos. That fiat cash is basically just an insurance policy against your own human panic.
Okay, that makes sense. Step 2 in the survival guide. And this one seems kind of obvious given everything we've talked about. AI mastery.
The core mantra here is absolutely crucial. AI won't take your job. A person using AI will take your job.
We've definitely heard that cliche floating around LinkedIn for a while. But let's go deeper. What does it actually mean in daily practice? Because a lot of people think using AI just means asking ChatGPT to write a funny poem for birthday card or summarize a long email.
That is just level 1. That's treating it like a toy. You urgently need to move to level 2 and level 3, which is mastering agentic workflows.
Agentic workflows. That sounds like pure sci-fi. Explain how that works for the listener.
Instead of just asking a single bot a single question, you engineer an entire system. Imagine you are a content marketer. Instead of painstakingly writing a blog post yourself over 3 days, you build an automated workflow. One specialized AI agent researches the trending topic and scrapes the web. A second agent takes that research and drafts a structural outline. A third agent writes the actual prose based on that strict outline. A fourth agent reviews the text for SEO optimization and brand voice. And a fifth agent automatically formats and posts it directly to your WordPress site.
Wow.
You aren't the exhausted writer anymore. You are the high-level architect of the system.
So you essentially become the manager of a highly efficient digital team that works 24/7.
Exactly. You become the pilot of the mech suit we talked about. If you can skillfully use AI to do the output of 3 or 4 full-time people, you suddenly become incredibly indispensable to your current employer. You are the specific person driving the extreme efficiency they want. Or, even better, you become fully capable of striking out on your own.
Which leads perfectly into step 3, entrepreneurship.
The traditional barriers to entry have completely collapsed. Think about that indie video game developer again. 10 short years ago, building a commercial-grade game absolutely required a massive team of 3D artists, network coders, sound engineers, and project producers.
You needed a publisher.
You needed millions of dollars in venture capital just for the monthly burn rate. Now, one highly motivated person with the right AI software stack can realistically do 80% of that specialized work for about $50 a month in API subscriptions.
So the explicit advice here is start something. Build a micro multinational.
Start a lean AI-native business from day one. You can completely run complex operations from your spare bedroom that used to require an entire corporate department. You can serve clients globally right from your laptop. But there's a massive sense of urgency here. The source explicitly warns that this golden window of opportunity will not stay open forever.
Why wouldn't it? If the AI tools are just going to keep getting better and cheaper, won't it just get easier to do this in 5 years?
The tools themselves will get better, yes, but the institutional competition will inevitably catch up. Right now, small, highly nimble players have a massive asymmetrical edge because big legacy companies are incredibly slow. Big corporations have endless legal reviews, strict compliance departments, institutional inertia, and clunky legacy software systems.
They are massive battleships trying to execute a U-turn.
And you are a jet ski.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, the corporate giants will figure out how to safely integrate this tech. Once Microsoft, Google, and Salesforce seamlessly bake agentic AI into every single boring enterprise workflow, your speed gap completely closes. Speed and total adaptability are your only true advantages right now. You absolutely need to establish your economic beachhead before the battleships finally arrive.
That makes a lot of sense. And finally, the last point, step 4, optionality.
This step is entirely about intellectual humility. Do not arrogantly try to predict the highly specific future. You will fail. We simply don't know if prompt engineering will still be a high-paying job in 2 years, or if the AI will just perfectly prompt itself. We don't honestly know if Bitcoin goes to $1 million a coin or crashes to zero.
So what exactly do you do if you admit you can't predict the board?
You strategically position yourself to absorb sudden shocks. The author Nassim Taleb famously calls this being anti-fragile. If you physically hold hard assets, you have a natural cushion against sudden inflation. If you aggressively learn highly diverse technical skills, you have a pivot point ready if your specific industry suddenly dies. If you build a small side business, you have vital income diversity, so you aren't completely financially reliant on the whims of one single boss.
It's about being fundamentally robust.
Exactly. If the global economy goes left, you're okay. If it violently shifts right, you're still okay. You aren't foolishly betting your life on one specific outcome. You are betting on your inherent ability to survive any outcome.
It's basically economic survival of the most adaptable.
Charles Darwin would be very proud. It's strictly not the strongest species that survives or the most highly intelligent, but the one that is most incredibly responsive to change.
So we've covered a lot of ground today. We exposed the lie of the official job numbers, the historical brutality of the macro shift using the weavers, the terrifying political paralysis in Washington, and the four-step survival guide. But I want to circle back to the outro, the final overarching warning in the source material.
It brings us right back to the central, agonizing paradox of our time. The macro economy is objectively getting richer. We are going to see absolutely incredible mind-bending advancements in physical science, biotechnology, and digital entertainment thanks to AI.
Oh, without a doubt.
We might literally cure specific types of cancer. We might finally crack fusion energy and have unlimited power. We might have completely personalized, hyper-effective education for every single child on Earth. The total economic pie is getting exponentially bigger.
But the ordinary person?
The ordinary average person is getting significantly poorer for an entire generation. That is the unbreakable historical precedent of every single major technological revolution we've ever had. And the stark reality check is that the government absolutely cannot save you in the short term. History actively proves they're usually way too slow, too deeply polarized, or too politically paralyzed to act until the severe damage is already done.
The source has a great line: we don't live in the long run.
Exactly. The ultimate gains of AI will eventually lift all of humanity. Maybe in the year 2060, we live in a post-scarcity Star Trek utopia where robots happily do all the labor and we just paint landscapes, explore deep space, and write poetry. But you and I live right now in the 2020s. We live squarely in the transition. And the transition is where all the historical pain is concentrated.
The source aggressively suggests that 90% of working adults are currently sitting in the absolute danger zone. That is a chilling, sobering statistic. 9 out of 10 people are wholly unprepared for this structural shift. They are essentially sleepwalking right into an economic buzzsaw.
It is terrifying. And it leaves us with the most important provocative question for you, the listener, today. It's definitely not a comfortable question. It's the kind of question that might legitimately keep you staring at the ceiling tonight.
What is it? Lay it on us.
Are you stubbornly waiting for the world to just go back to normal? Are you sitting around waiting for interest rates to miraculously drop back to zero so you can refinance your life? Are you patiently waiting for corporate hiring to randomly pick up so you can finally get that comfortable middle management promotion? Are you waiting for the politicians in Washington to suddenly wake up and fix it all for you? Or are you finally accepting the reality that the entire game board has been permanently changed?
Are you actively preparing for a completely new world where human labor, your physical and cognitive effort, is no longer the primary driver of wealth?
Because if you're just quietly waiting for normal to return, you may be standing on a platform waiting for a train that has already left the station, derailed, and been melted down for scrap metal.
Well, on that incredibly light note, I think I need to log off, go cancel some useless streaming subscriptions, buy a little more gold, and finally figure out how to build a proper AI agent to do my taxes.
That is probably a highly effective use of your evening.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. It's a completely brave new world out there. Protect yourselves, stay adaptable, and good luck.
See you next time.